9-6.
All right, everybody.
It's been a month since you,
What's that?
maybe you had to adjust what you were gonna talk about, because it's been over a month.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to produce much review, but, I mean, you gotta go back to the beginning and pay it practice with me. All right. We're gonna get started here, because from a time standpoint, I wanna make sure we have time. The last time, I swear that bell rang 10 minutes after we started. But we're gonna go ahead and get going here.
Can we get like a 3-minute snippet of review for,
Yes.
because it's been a while?
Yes,
And I hate to put more load on
I
you.
know, I was planning on it, but just so you're aware, I have 5 pages of notes today, so just
Three
goes
more
to show you. We got a lot to go through.
We'll get through it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, every time. Okay, so if you remember when we started last time, we started with just remembering until October 7th, the Hamas attacked Israel, all the stuff that happened, and then this war has just continued to go on. And the fighting really has been street to street, house to house, whatever else. It's been very, and there's all sorts of accusations, and so much of the stuff that's going on is Palestinians who are saying, we have every right to be here in this. This is our land, and the Israelis are being aggressive, and they're trying to take us out. Then you have the Jews, who are from their side saying, no, you keep trying to shoot us, you keep trying to kill us, and we have the right to this land. And there's been this tension that they've been living with, and we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And so the question that we looked at the last time was, who is Hamas? Where did all this land grab stuff even come from? Where's all the fighting? Who are the Palestinians? Like we talked about the last time, the residents of Palestine, who are the Palestinians? They are residents of Palestine. So we're going to go back to you know what, we're going to do this. Okay, let's just walk through some of the slides. It's probably easier this way. If you remember, after World War II, the United Nations came along. They said, Israel, you deserve to have some land back because you have no home, and everywhere they seem to go, they like to get killed. So when 1947 they came with this plan, which divided it all up. Blue was Israeli, red was Palestinian, and then yellow was a shared occupation. So the city of Jerusalem, and then you have blue, and then the red. Well, that didn't go so well. And so then after that, what are we doing here in this? Give subtitles a try? No, I don't want to do that. There we go. Okay, back to this. This was a war. There was a war that took place, 1967. And the kind of the world, the Middle Eastern world came against Israel, and it was bad for them.
Literally everyone declared war on Israel.
Literally everyone declared war on Israel, and it was like this little tiny Israel against everybody, and Israelis trounced them. I mean, trounced them. It was the 6-Day War, 1967. So I like this. Before, on June 5, this is what it was. By June 11, this is what it was. Nice. The Jews just demolished them, okay? So this happens, but they didn't stay that long that way. There were some efforts to work at some peace. And so Israel, you can see this. So Israel in 1948 was this. Israel in 1967, they had come down here. The land returned to Egypt and Syria. So they were like, yeah, I know you came against us, but we're going to be nice people and give it back to you. Which is what happened. So they gave it back. They gave all this back. And then this is the way it was. This is the way it ended up. They gave some of that back to Syria, and then this back to Egypt.
I think a key point is that throughout the years, there's been negotiations about this 2 states, and Israel has always said yes to every plan. Maybe not so much recently, but in other words, it was Palestinians who's always said no, and then Israel has always accepted the plan,
right,
and then gets attacked, and then they gain more land after these wars. It's kind of ironic, or
yeah, exactly.
So another thing to note there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another thing I just want to say, that Gaza Strip was not given back to Egypt, or given to Egypt.
Somebody wants to get a hold of you, Ken. So you said Gaza Strip was not given back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not highlighted, but some people might not be able to see that.
Okay, yeah, this is not highlighted. So, yep, so the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and then also there's still some up here as well, Golan Heights. So those are the various words you might hear them Yeah, so Gaza Strip, West Bank, Golan Heights. If you hear, oh, there's fighting in the Golan Heights, that's up here, up in the northern part. Or there's fighting in the West Bank, that's over here. And it's the West Bank of the Jordan, that's why. Okay, that's what it's from. And then the Gaza Strip is this little thing, and we talked about that last time. The reason it's called the Gaza Strip is because of the city of Gaza that goes all the way back to Philistine times. I mean, that goes way, way back for Gaza.
So if we went way, way back,
Yes,
what, if you can't point to it, say we'll pass.
yeah,
What did God say? This is the promised land for you.
we're coming.
Go well. Oh, okay.
We're coming.
Okay.
It's actually a lot.
Yeah, I have a slide that'll show you all their land.
And that's cool.
We just did that.
Yep. All right. So this was, you can just see some of the pictures here. So this is today. Even now within the West Bank, you can see all these Israeli settlements. All the red dots are Israeli settlements within the West Bank. So now this is not all Palestinian. This is actually Palestinian, but there's Israeli settlements in there. Which means there is a lot of tension. It really is a tinderbox. It is so much tension between these. In fact, we're going to even look at the Temple Mount and how the Temple Mount is controlled by the Muslims within the city of Jerusalem, who controls the whole thing. It's a strange thing. But and then last time we talked, like, how big is this area? And this is the size of Texas. So you can see from Iraq and Iran all the way over to here. This is
So Jerusalem's like New Jersey size.
yeah.
Or sorry, Israel.
Right, Israel is like New Jersey. Yeah, it is not big at all. All of this tension, all of this fighting, I mean, this is all very hot area, and this is all just the size of Texas. So there's a lot of close stuff here. I wanted to show you this. We got to this. Because the question is about the land. Like, who has a right to the land? Where does this even come from, okay? So I want you to see, anybody know what this is?
Dome of the Rock.
Dome of the Rock, okay? So what you have here is, this is looking from the south, okay? So this is north, that way. This is like a big triangle, and it fits, if I draw it like this, the city of Jerusalem, it kind of comes down, so this is the Kidron Valley. You can read about that in the Bible. Kidron Valley, then there's like a valley that comes like here, there's a little valley like this. This comes down, this is the Valley of Hinnom, which is their trash dump. This was the city of David, okay? This is where the Jebusites, maybe you heard that, the city of Jebus, this was that city. But now, and when you read in the Bible, oftentimes you'll read about the city of David. The city of David was a designation for this lower part of what we would call modern day Jerusalem. This is all Jerusalem now, okay? But this is that lower part, the old city. And then up here, this is where you have Temple Mount. So here is the Dome of the Rock, right there. And then this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, okay? So I wanted you to see the picture. That's the Dome of the Rock, so you can see it there. So this kind of comes this way. Ed has sent me a picture of him standing, just like a couple months ago. He was standing right
at the front door there.
Yeah, right over here? Is
No, inside.
Inside?
Yeah,
right over there? Okay. So Ed was standing there. There's like nobody around. Dad's like one of only two people up there. Anyway, this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So this is a functional mosque today. Okay, so the Arabs, the Muslims, this is a functional mosque right here on the Temple Mount. And then you have this is still the Dome of the Rock. Now, why is this so special? Why is this so special to the Muslims?
Not just because it's pretty.
Not just because it's pretty. It is pretty. I mean, that's quite the dome up there. It's a pretty building. Yes.
Isn't it one of their most holy sites, considered like 3 or 4?
It is. It is. It's definitely one of their most holy sites. So why is it holy to the Muslims?
Well, like we believe the ladder up to Lord Muhammad is said in the book that he ascended from the rock, right?
Yeah, yes.
If I
Yep.
name the names right.
Yes. In Muslim tradition, it's believed that Muhammad ascended to Allah from the Temple Mount. So they believe that when Muhammad dies or whatever, that he actually ascended from this place up there, which is why this is a massively holy site. Now, why is this site right here so specific to the Jews? Why did they lay claim to this spot?
Now we go way back, because Ed did a lot of research, because he was just there. Sorry. And most of them people don't understand, but it was, who was the first guy, when he was supposed to execute his, Isaac, went on this long journey.
Yep.
And for somehow, it is said that that is where the rock is, the altar that he built. And it's underneath this rock.
Yeah.
And it's guarded now, and most of the I talked to security folks, I said, oh, we've been in there, it's not there. They put a glass piece over it for a long time, because way back before they had glass, one of the guys with the swords, the Christian guys, I'm sorry, I have this name on it.
Crusaders?
The what?
The Crusaders?
The Crusaders would come to the spot and go, this is the rock, and they would cut a piece of that off with their big sword and take it home, because it was supposedly where
Abraham.
Abraham sacrificed Isaac.
was stopped from.
This temple area here, this is actually a mountain, okay? So there's a little bit of a mountain and there's a little bit of a valley, then it goes back up, okay? This is actually called Mount Moriah, if you've heard of that before. So Mount Moriah is that's Temple Mount. Mount Moriah was a threshing floor. How many of you remember what a threshing floor was from the Ruth series, okay? So Mount Moriah was a threshing floor. Why? Because it was on the top of a hill, and it was owned by a guy. Anybody know who owned the threshing floor on Mount Moriah?
Was it Aruna?
Aruna the Jebusite. Araunah, the Jebusite. Now when we read Aruna the Jebusite, now you know Aruna the Jebusite simply lived here because the city of David, before it was set, was known as the city of Jebus. So the people who lived in this city were the city of Jebus. They were known as the Jebusites. So here's a guy from Jebus who owns the Mount Moriah, and when David comes in and he knocks everybody out, he kills them all. They snuck in through the water system. I don't know if you remember the story. Snuck in through the water system, and they got in, and that's how they took out this supposedly impenetrable city. When they got in, obviously Aruna the Jebusite realizes, hey, I don't really own anything. I guess if you want it, you can have it. But David says, I will not take anything, because if it costs me nothing, then how can I offer it to God? So he goes to Aruna the Jebusite, even though technically David could have just taken it. But he says, I'm going to pay for it, and I'm going to give you money. Temple Mount has only been bought one time. By David. Ever since then, it has always been stolen. You know? Ever since then, the Ottoman Turks came in, you would have the Crusaders who would take it, whatever else. But it has only been bought once. Therefore, who owns this?
A descendant of David.
A descendant of David. I mean, it really is the Jewish land. Now, why in the world do the Jews allow them to be up there? Well, there was a
Politics, that's why.
politics, that's right. So I'm going to read this because I got this off an article. I thought it was a good way of putting it. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, the Jordanians, who had control of the West Bank, which, by the way, Jordan is over here. Jordan is that direction. It's, this way over here, okay? The Jordanians, who had control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, attacked Israel with the help of Syria and Egypt. The Israelis pushed the Jordanians out of the West Bank, and as a result took East Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. So they pushed them out of the West Bank and took East Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. So if we go back to our thing, Yeah, I guess it's this one. They pushed him out of Jerusalem, and then they pushed him out of this all the way over. They pushed him over, see Jordan River, they pushed him over to that side. They got him out of there. But, oh, go back this way. After the dust settled from the Six-Day War, Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol returned the authority of the Temple Mount to the Islamic Waqf. How do you say that? W-A-Q-F. Anybody? Okay, it's Waqf.
You did great.
All right. The Waqf are the Islamic guardians of Muslim holy sites. They watch over them and make sure they are being managed properly. Levi Eshkol returned the Temple Mount to the Islamic Waqf as a gesture of peace to the Arab world. He vowed, no harm whatsoever shall come to the places sacred to all religions. So, while the Muslims have authority to manage Temple Mount, according to their laws, traditions, and practices, the Israelis technically have control over the Temple Mount. The Israeli police manage the Temple Mount, standing guard at the entrances and exits, and I remember that. The Israeli police work with the Islamic Waqf to provide safe entrance at specific times during the day for non-Muslims to tour the Temple Mount. Okay? When we were there, so we were up standing, we were sitting, yeah, I guess it was right over this, yep, it was right over in here. So we're over in this area, and we had a gathering, because we came in, and we stood over here. And our tour guide says, so I'm going to tell you all about the stuff, and we're going to talk about all the things that are going on. Oh yeah, there's a picture of it. But, if I see, because they have spies, kind of spies all around. If we see somebody that looks a little suspicious, I'm going to start telling you about the camels. Camels is code for people are going to be around. And so he would just be talking, whatever else. Now, he never switched to tell us about camels, but that was what he was going to do. Because up on this site, you could easily get kicked off Temple Mount if you were proselytizing, whatever else up there. Okay? So, while this wall, which, by the way, just so you know, this whole area is about 11 football fields.
Wow.
Okay? Temple Mount is about 11 football fields put together. So it's a big, big area. But all these people then would be gathered. But this is all controlled by Muslims, and this is all Jewish around it.
Was the whole, where was the actual Temple Mount where the temple was built? But
Yeah.
where was the temple in that?
It all depends on the conspiracy theories, okay?
And which court you're talking about too,
Which one?
and which court as well, because the temple whole area was pretty large.
Yes. Well,
As far as-
this was the thing. When we watched a video and our tour guide gave it, it was fascinating for him to tell us. The original temple, so built by Solomon, would have been kind of like this area here.
Yeah.
Okay? That would have been the original one. When Herod came along, Herod, who was not loved by anybody, really, he loved himself, but he says, I'm going to make basically an edifice out of this. So he took and carved out a lot of rocks from a hill over here, brought them all down, and then built this wall. Herod was the one who made Temple Mount look like this. This would have been the original temple area. So when Herod came along and added on, this is still Temple Mount. Now the conspiracy theories tell us that the Dome of the Rock is not actually on the space where the original temple was. They said they got the wrong space.
Now, we can't actually know that because we can't do archaeology, right?
Right. So it just feeds the conspiracies. Yeah.
What was the thing, we went inside and then went down, and then they had glass that showed the layers of how it was built.
Right, that was down over here, which by the way, you can't really see it, but right over here, this is this area right here, this is the Wailing Wall.
Yeah.
This is the Western Wall, right here in the corner. And so we were told, that, so when people pray against the Wailing Wall, they're not, or the Western Wall, we call it the Wailing Wall, they call it the Western Wall, okay? But when people pray against the Western Wall, the reason why they're praying in that spot is because they believe that's the closest spot that you can get to the original temple over here. Okay?
Original King Solomon's temple.
King Solomon, yeah, the original
is that
temple.
the
Yes,
King-
Where
yes.
was it, where was the temple of Ezra's time? Was it on top of the old Solomonic area?
Mhm. Yeah. This would have been this has been Temple Mount every time.
Okay.
Yeah. Except like for instance, when Nebuchadnezzar came, he destroyed the thing. And then Ezra, then that was rebuilt then under Zerubbabel. He put it back together. And then it stayed kind of down, and then Herod came along and says, let's make it big. So then they make it big, and then the Romans came along in 70 AD and just crushed the whole thing too. So, yeah, that's what you have. So this is the Dome of the Rock, where they think this is probably the original Temple Mount.
So wherever it was, all three of those temples were the same foundation.
Correct.
Now there's
Correct.
a dispute where that foundation
Yes,
would be,
yes,
but there's no dispute that they all.
that's correct.
Wow.
That's correct. All right, any other questions on?
So what could Israel do if they wanted to build a temple? What could they do without ticking off the Muslims?
Nothing.
Nothing.
See,
And anything that they would do.
that's why this is such a tinderbox, because the Muslims say this is where Muhammad ascended, therefore we have every right to this. It's interesting, in Islamic lore, I read about this, in Islamic lore, they believe that Abraham went with Hagar and Ishmael to Mecca.
Wow.
Yep. So we do know that Abraham slept with Ishmael, not with Ishmael, that's bad. with Hagar, producing Ishmael. We do know that, but we know nothing in our Bible of Abraham taking a trip to Mecca to do this. But that's what Islamic lore says.
Yeah.
Probably just the same as the Mormons went in submarines over to America, right? Yes.
So when Jesus comes down,
Yes.
his feet touch, where is that?
Yes. Okay, great question. Okay, so this right here, you can see this right down through here. This is the low part. So
The highway.
this, it's like a highway, but this is, actually, these are all tombs, okay, right on that side. A lot of these,
Crypts.
but a lot of these are Muslims,
Oh, interesting.
because it's the barrier for Jesus coming in, because he said he's going to enter through the eastern gate. So they figure that if they're there, that he can't come over. Okay? Now, this is all on this side. This is all on this side. This is the Kidron Valley over here.
It drops off very hard there.
Yep, it does. It goes down, so it's kind of like a temp. So from a geographical, this is Mount of Olives. Right there, okay? So right here, right there is the Mount of Olives. So when it says when Jesus is going to come back, there in Zechariah, it says his feet are going to touch down where he left off. Acts chapter 1 prophesied that, right? He says, the way I'm leaving, that's the way I'm going to come back. And he says he's going to come to the Mount of Olives. He's going to enter through the eastern gate, which is somewhere along here.
I was going to ask if you knew where it was, because it's never been opened again.
Correct.
And I never actually got to say, that's it. So.
Correct. Nope. It's somewhere along here. There was an eastern gate, which is right in this area, but there's a lot of disputes about which one it is. Okay? But that's where he'll be. He'll come down to the Mount of Olives, and then he'll come down through the Kidron Valley, enter the eastern gate, and then come into Jerusalem. Okay? Questions? All right.
You've got nowhere on our lesson this week yet, have you?
Oh, no, we're coming. We're making it.
We're gonna be here till 4.
We're making it. No, this is good. This is good. All right. So just a reminder, because we talk, who's got a right to the land? Who's the person who bought it last?
And,
King David. Okay? So just keep that in mind. All right. So I want you to look in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 12, please. All right. So this is what's called the call of Abram. Now, Abram was Abram at the time. He was not the father of many nations yet. He didn't have any kids at the moment. So he was just Abram. Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. And then God gives him a promise. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. As long as you do this. Did you see that? It ain't in there. You see, this is called an unconditional covenant. There are conditional covenants throughout Scripture, and then there are unconditional covenants. A conditional covenant says, I'm going to do this as long as you do that. And if you do that, then I'm going to do this. And if you don't do that, then I'm not going to do this. It's just the way that it works. In this particular covenant, God says, I'm going to do this with no covenant, with no conditions. So this is the covenant that he made to make Abram and his descendants into a great nation. Which nation is that? The nation of Israel. When were they first known as Israel?
They or him?
When were the people first known as when were they first known as Israelites? Remember Jacob? Jacob's name was changed to what? Israel. Okay? So back here they were just the descendants of Abram or Abraham. Alright? So the Muslims claim that they are earlier descendants of Abram. Okay? There's actually other descendants of Abram outside of the Muslims and the Jews. Anybody know? Remember? Yes.
The Edomites?
Yes, because was that through Keturah? No. Edomites is Esau. Esau and Jacob and Esau. Okay? So yes, you're correct. There's that. But even Abram had another wife by the name of Keturah. And so Abram, he spread his seed far and wide, I guess we would say. All right? So, but within Israel, you've got these various groups. The Palestinians, which are made up of the Muslims, but you also have these other descendants of Keturah. Yes, Jacob and Esau, you've got the Edomites. You got all these groups that are somehow together. But the idea going back is an unconditional covenant that was made with Israel, with Abraham, regarding his people, who would be known as the Israelites. Turn over to Genesis chapter 15, please. All right, Genesis 15. God's covenant again with Abram. So let's do it. This is another time around. But Abram said, "O Lord, what can you give me since I've remained childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer, that too, of Damascus." And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant of my household will be my heir." Then the word of the Lord came to him, "This man will not be your heir, but a son, coming from your own body, will be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. So you see here the promise that Abram was going to have children. And these children, and this promise, do you see any as long as?
No.
Do you see any covenants yet? Or do you see any conditionalism in this? Nope, I'm going to do this. Period. Now if you remember, now things get a little squirrely because, Sarah says, maybe my maidservant, maybe that's the one. And then we wouldn't have all this problem if it wasn't for this. But I want you to turn to verse 17. Verse 17. When the sun had set and the darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. Abram had been told to take an animal, cut it in two pieces, okay, which is a sign of a covenant. He says, blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. The land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, Jebusites, mosquito-bites." That's what I was always told growing up, the mosquito bites. I had to add that in there. So let's go to, all right, so this is Temple Mount. I forgot to show you this picture earlier. This was from when we were there. This is Dome of the Rock. It's spectacular. It really is amazing.
God would not deal with second best on his mountain.
Very true. Unfortunately, that's even the Muslims. But anyway, so this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is from inside. Here's the wall back here, so you can see it a little bit. All right. Now, this was the land. So I want you to see Where were the Hittites?
Way north.
Way north. This is Turkey. So when we read of some of these things, we understand these are more relatively close by. The Amorites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites. Remember Jebusites over there? Remember from city of Jebus? All those things, that's the land that he gets. So you can see this picture of all of this, but it actually extends up into modern day Turkey. So there's an illustration here, and that is, you can see it. If you can see kind of the outline. Whereas this is down into Egypt. So remember after the 1967 war? It's actually all the way over, all the way to the river, the Nile River, all of this stuff. So Suez Canal right in there. They didn't even get over there before. This is up into modern day Turkey. You've got all of this land around here. It's down to the Great River, which would have been the Euphrates. So all the way up into the Black Sea. You know the Ukrainian fighting is going up in the Black Sea. So this is a huge section of land. Remember, it's still not typically that big because of the state of Texas. It still covers a lot of this. But as far as what they currently have ever occupied, the answer is no. They have never occupied this much land.
Have they even occupied half?
Under Solomon, under David and Solomon, that was the extent of the empire that they occupied. And they covered probably this, they never covered over to here, ever. So it's mainly just kind of in this area that they've covered. Just Syria, Lebanon, all of these areas, that's what they have conquered. They have never gotten all the way into here. They've never been up here. So the prophecies were given that this will happen, okay? I want you to look at...
Is that conditional?
No. Okay?
No.
Not very confident.
Because I'm trying to think of the verse. I'm trying to think of the verse that would say where exactly it is. Usually I like to have a verse, and that was the brain stopping for a
If it's
second.
not conditional, then the fulfillment in the future.
That's correct. The fulfillment is definitely in the
That's
future.
gonna be the kingdom.
Yes, yes.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's conditional, because in the context here, God is playing the part of Abraham as well.
True.
It seems to be contextual.
Abraham is sleeping.
Yeah, Abram's sleeping. See, in a covenant, if what we would do to make it a two-way contract, would both parties would walk through. Both parties would go through the animals. May it be to me if I don't do. May I become like these animals if I renege on my part of the covenant, and may it become to you like these animals if you renege. That's the idea of the covenant. But Abram never passes through. So yep, all of a sudden my brain froze. Thank you for bringing it back again. You're right.
So God, in a sense, was making the covenant with himself.
That's correct. That's correct. I want you to see, this is an interesting one. This is not in my notes. This is a bonus point. Jeremiah 31. They know this is the new covenant, which is great, but there's other stuff here as well. Jeremiah 31:31 is the new covenant, but look at 31:35. Jeremiah 31:35. This is what the Lord says. He who appoints the sun to shine by day, who decrees the moon and stars to shine by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord Almighty is his name. Verse 36. Only if these decrees vanish from my sight, declares the Lord, will the descendants of Israel ever cease to be a nation before me. Wow. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Only if the heavens above can be measured and the foundations of the earth below can be searched out, will I reject all the descendants of Israel because of all they have done, declares the Lord. I'll tell you, if there is no conditional stuff, this is completely unconditional. God says, if the sun stops shining, if you can measure the heavens above, all that sort of stuff, then and only then. You're a famous guy, Ken.
People all over the country.
Then and only then will the nation of Israel cease to be a nation.
And this is significant here because Jeremiah is predicting the fall of Israel from the Babylonians.
That's correct.
Which totally, so it's like he's saying, don't let that fool you.
That's correct.
Still, this is still the Holy Land.
That's correct. That's correct. So we don't have time to go into all this, but I want you to unpack it. But I want you to look Romans 11, I'm sorry. Romans 9 through 11, for those of you who have never really studied it out, Romans 9 through 11 is the best section that I believe we have in our Bible to understand what the heck is God doing with Israel today. How do you explain where Israel is at today? Because it depends on what churches you go to. But there is something called... oh, that thing is terrible. Wow. All right, well...
It's not an eraser, it's a semi-eraser.
Right, exactly. Replacement theology. Within replacement theology says that Israel, the nation of Israel, is now the church. All the promises that were given Israel in the Old Testament, those were fulfilled in Israel. But now God is dealing with the church, never again to restore his dealings with the nation of Israel.
What denominations hold that?
Christian Reform, any of your Reformed denominations would hold to this, that the church is now spiritual Israel. So yes, Ben.
Also known as covenant theology?
Also known as covenant theology. Now it's interesting. Oftentimes when you talk about replacement theology, they say, no, it's not replacement theology, because that sounds bad. So now they've come up with a different word. It's now fulfillment theology. We don't like that one. Let's go to fulfillment theology. I find that really interesting. Yes, Dee Dee.
Where's the Catholic Church fall into that? At all?
No theology.
They are there.
Yeah. Catholicism definitely, yeah, it's very weird. But they believe that the church is them.
Yeah.
Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, if you look at it very specifically, they are the church. So you come to God through the church. But who's the church? Roman Catholicism. Which is kind of messed up in my opinion. What I want you to see is this. Romans 11 and 12. Again I ask, did they stumble so far as to fall beyond recovery? Not at all. Rather, because of their transgression, by the way, it's talking about Israel, nation of Israel. Rather, because of their transgression is a word for willful sin. Not just an, oops, I did it, I didn't mean to. No, I willingly did it. Because of their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make Israel envious. So why is the nation of Israel been set aside, not done away with? It's to make them jealous. Why? Because God is dealing with the Gentiles and Jews together in the church, the body of Christ. We're going to talk about that in a few weeks in our Ephesians series. And then verse 12, but if their transgression means riches for the world, and their loss means riches for the Gentiles, how much greater riches will their fullness bring? Jump down to verse 25, please. I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written. The deliverer will come from Zion. By the way, if we go back to our drawing here, this mountain right here is actually Mount Zion. It's right over there. I thought it was pretty interesting. So there you can see. But the deliverer said will come from Zion. That sometimes is also a metaphorical reference to Israel itself. But it's interesting that it is a physical place as well, on right there by Jerusalem. He says,
word also used for Jerusalem.
It is. It's like I said. It's sometimes used as the broader context. Deliverer will come from Zion, from Jerusalem. But it's cool to see how it's technically a Mount Zion. There's a mountain right there. The deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godlessness away from Jacob, whose name became Israel. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. As far as the gospel is concerned, they are enemies on your account. But as far as election is concerned, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. For God's gifts and His call are irrevocable. God's gifts and His call are irrevocable. Is God done with Israel today? Not a chance. Not a chance. So, if I can have 3 minutes here, I will finish, okay? Okay. So, is Israel's right to the land permanent?
Yes.
I don't see why it wouldn't be. It was purchased. The last one to purchase it was David for the Jews. God gave them, this was the prophecy that was there, God gave them the land. And
To be fair, he did say, I will give you.
yes, in fact, God removed them twice. He Himself removed them twice. But it's interesting that when He sent them up into Assyria, which would be up in this area, and then He also sent them over to Babylon, which is in this area. So I find that interesting.
Not all of them, but yeah.
Correct, some of them. But the question then comes down to, what are we supposed to do with Israel today? And I want to summarize it like this. Is the biblical nation of Israel a sign of biblical fulfillment? Is the Israel today, I said that wrong. Is the Israel of today a sign of biblical fulfillment?
After the Holocaust?
I'd say no.
So, I think so.
Partial.
At the point, yeah. When you don't know, the answer is Jesus, right? Yeah, we're in church. One of the things that we see here is it is a secular nation today. It is a very secular nation over in Israel today. When we were there, I mean, it was quite the mix of, you got the people who were in black and white, and they're the ones that got the little curly cues. They're like the strict, devout. And then we were in the airport, and these dudes are over on the side, and they got their shofar out. They're going to blow the shofar thing because they're just strict Jews. And then you got the other lady who's standing right over here. She's definitely Jew, but she's wearing a crop top like this, skinny jeans, and she's like, I hate those penguins. So so you see this tension that's existing. This is a secular nation, is really what it is today. So what does that mean and how we're supposed to support them? And I wish we had way more time, but I'm going to summarize it like this. All right? Should we or shouldn't we support Israel today? And how? In Isaiah 47 verse 6, this is what Isaiah says. I was angry with my people and desecrated my inheritance. I gave them into your hand. Now he says this, Isaiah, he says it to the Babylonians. Or no, this wasn't the Babylonians. This would have been Isaiah. This would have been to the Assyrians. He says this to them. I was angry with my people and desecrated my inheritance. I gave them into your hand. I did it. Why? Because I was judging them. Because it's my prerogative. But then he goes on to say this. And you showed them no mercy. So what's really interesting is even in that Isaiah 47 passage, God says, I'm going to set them aside, but I'm going to hold you accountable for what you do with them. And I feel like that's kind of our tension we have to live with today. And we can unpack this if we have more time, but I want you to hear my heart. I believe, are we supposed to support Israel today? I believe the answer is yes. But does that mean that we just say, oh, Israel says it, we need to do it? Why? Because it's biblical fulfillment. I don't believe it has to be biblical fulfillment. There is something coming yet called the rapture. I believe we're gone, we're out of here before Israel's real program gets going, if you look at a prophetic program. Could God be setting the table and bringing things together? Absolutely he could. Absolutely. But there is nothing that has to happen there for the rapture to take place. Nothing. So our next step in the timeline is waiting for Jesus to return, the blessed hope, the glorious appearing of Jesus Christ. That's our hope. Do we need to worry about what's happening over there? I think it's good to keep an eye on it. I think if God's going to judge Israel, I say let God judge Israel, and if you're going to be the hand by which God judges Israel, you better do it well. Because God will hold you accountable for how you carry out His agenda. So if I'm going to be I'm going to be a fan of Israel, I'm going to support Israel, I think it's right, because there is a nation of Israel still yet to come. We are not like those who teach that Israel is gone. The nation of Israel still has a future and a hope. And we are, I guess, I want to be on the part that says, I'm on God's team in this, okay? All
There
right,
could be some things that they do that is not aligned with what God wants.
absolutely.
Both can be true at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if Israel comes along and says, we want to nuke the rest of the world, I think we have every right to say, probably not.
Yes.
But anyway, so, hey, I know we went through a lot today. There's a lot more, but yeah, I hope this was good. So, okay. Thank you all for coming, and I sure appreciate being a part of this. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.